go from there.
All downhill from there.
Well, this is Mother and Father. It is September 7th, 1996. 1997. And we just finished having Sunday dinner. And wanted to visit with Mom about some things in her youth. So, tell me, I'm interested in knowing how you felt about Dad when you met him and when you went through college with him and some of your impressions that way.
A little bit of this story. Am I on this too?
Yeah, but I've heard it from you.
But I mean, you're not taking a picture of me.
Yeah.
Well.
A little bit about how where she came from and where she.
No,
Well, I've got all up to about college of Mom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, when I met Dean before I went to college, I met Dean when I was a freshman in high school.
Right.
And I thought he was handsome. I loved to watch him walk because he had such a beautiful walk. And I look at him now and think, what happened to that beautiful walk? But
it grew up.
What's the
well, I can remember after I'd gone with him, I don't think I'd gone with him more than once. And I was in his home visiting with his sister. His sister was a good friend of mine, and I was up visiting with her and his mother, and we were talking, and he came home from school. He came home from basketball practice, I guess, or football practice or something. It would have been basketball at that time. And I looked at him and I thought, I'm going to marry him. And I didn't, it wasn't like I had made up my mind I wanted to. It was just like something had said, you're going to marry him. And I thought, oh dear, I didn't want to meet the man I was going to marry so soon. I like all the boys. Wasn't ready to settle down and think about anyone I wanted to marry right then, you know. So that's one thing. Another thing was fun to watch him play ball and things like that.
So, when did you get married?
We got married when he had graduated from Rick's College, and I had just finished my first year at Rick's. At the end of that year in September, before I started a second year of school, which I never do. And then before he started, his second year
Second year.
His second year at University of Utah.
How did he propose?
Well, it wasn't fancy or strange like the kids do now. I mean, they take them on a ride and give it to them in an ice cube or something like that. He just, well, we had talked about it. We had talked about it when, we don't want posterity to know
Sure
that.
we do.
We went together for 5 years.
I was 14 and he was 16. And it was about that time that he told me he wanted to marry me. And I thought, I know that.
I've been told.
I mean, I wasn't surprised because ever since I had this feeling that I was going to marry him, I had just kind of accepted that as fate. And so when we had talked about it when we were very young. And how he proposed when he had a diamond, and he came home at Christmas time. And
and you turned him down?
Well, did you know that?
No.
You did not. Did you?
What made you say that?
That's what Dad said.
Well, I did.
Oh.
I did because I thought, well, like I said, I always liked all the boys, and I didn't hear a voice or anything that said you're going to marry him. I just kind of knew I was. Well, I think it was just that I was not ready. It wasn't that I didn't want to marry him. I really did want to marry him. I just was not quite ready to get married, you know. And there were a lot of things that I wanted to do and such, and so I said no. And so how long was it before I finally said yes?
Oh, yeah.
Not very
I
long.
went back to school. It was during the holiday. I was on the way home from a basketball trip up into Montana.
Uh-huh.
And I just stopped off, and when I just went on home, went down to Salt Lake again to school. And after school was out, and when the summer came, I came back to do some surveying for the government, remember?
Uh-huh.
And that summer was when we settled it, I think.
Well, as a matter of fact, I still wasn't ready to get married, but I was afraid he'd marry someone else. And I felt like I had kept him hanging
On the string, sort of.
on the string just about as long as I could get away with it. And I really and truly didn't want to lose him. I really and truly didn't want him to marry anyone else. And so I thought, well, this is the way it's got to be. I better be careful, or I might lose him, and I wouldn't want to do that.
Well, Dad, how?
I had her mother on my side, too. I don't know how much they talked about it, but I knew her mother liked me. And
It makes a difference.
so I thought it'll just be a matter of time.
Well, how did you feel when she said no?
I felt disappointed because I thought but then she had sort of been making me be a little bit unsettled that way for a couple of years, because she would go with other boys, and sometimes she would act rather disdainful about me, and so I wasn't going to marry anybody else. I was just willing to wait. I did date a couple of girls when I went to Salt Lake.
And that scared me nearly to death. I didn't mind keeping him waiting as long as he was just waiting. But if he was looking around, then I didn't want him looking around.
Right.
So when I came home for the summer, we dated, and in that process of doing so, I said, then we determined, she said she'd marry me, and so I went to her father, too, in that summer. And that's when I asked him. Told him I'd like to marry her.
And what did he say?
He said yes.
He didn't.
He said take good care of her. And she was his favorite daughter, because she was his first child and first daughter of her mother, you see. Her mother's only child.
I wasn't the favorite, though.
Well, I think she was.
No, I mean, every child maybe feels like
Well,
they're the
I
favorite.
think so too. But I think that because she was her mother's first child, I think that her father, and this was his third wife, you see. The other wives had died, and I think that she was kind of special to him because of being this wife's first child. And although she had other sisters and brothers and so forth, I think because she was the oldest and she helped take care of the children and was more grown up, and mature naturally. And by the time she was 14, she was mature as most girls are when they're 16 or 18. And that always impressed me.
Uh, and that's the way it is now. I'm 79 and I'm as mature as most 100-year-olds.
That was pretty clever.
That was good.
That was pretty clever. I think that I had told my dad out on the combine that I was going to marry Dottie someday. And he said, well, just remember, think about it and think the ones you want to marry are the ones who are going to be the mother of your children. What kind of standards does she have? What kind of character does she have? And how is she going to raise your children? Because she'll be the most important person in their lives for establishing their characters. And so, as I watched her and I knew her parents and I knew her devotion and her testimony, because I was going to Sunday school class with her and everything else, and we had talked about life too, and what I was going to be, and I knew what her testimony was, and what her character was, and she was of all the girls that I knew, I was one who she was the one that I wanted to be that closely associated with through this life and then through eternity, and to be the mother of our children, of our family. And so that's what I determined. I was young. I knew when I was in the 7th grade I was going to be a doctor, and I just decided I was going to be a doctor when I was in the 7th grade, and I just went one year after the next, knowing that was going to be the end result. And so I went to school with a lot of girls, and I liked a lot of girls, but when Dottie came into my life, I didn't like the other girls anymore. And she just changed my life completely. And it's just grown and grown ever since.
Mom, how did you feel as a newlywed? Where were you married?
In the Salt Lake Temple. How did I feel as a newlywed?
Because you were young. How old were you?
19.
Yeah, how'd you feel? Was it a nervous time? Was it carefree?
Well, it was carefree, but it was also a time of being concerned that you can do the things you need to do and take care of the things you need to take care of, and feel a lot of responsibility when you get married. And it was interesting because it's interesting the spiritual maturity that you come to. We did not feel concerned to be at sacrament meeting every single day. Now I don't even consider missing sacrament meeting or anything. I mean, if I were ill or if you were ill or something like that, and I need to come and take care of you or something like that, but not to go anywhere or do something or have some fun or stay home to study or anything like that. I wouldn't do that anymore. But when we were first married, I can remember when we decided we need to go to sacrament meeting at least every other Sunday. And I think as a church we've progressed a lot since then. Because just everyone that I knew and friends and such, not anybody went to sacrament meeting every time. That seemed like really quite a lot, But it wasn't very long until we upon the fact that it was a commandment to go to the sacrament meeting every time. And it didn't take us long to shape up when we knew
I
that.
think we were both raised where we went to sacrament meeting every week with our family. And when we got married, we certainly sort of felt a little independence, where we were out from under the pressures of our mothers and fathers. We were a family of our own now, and we wanted a little independence, so we decided that we wouldn't go to church every Sunday.
I don't ever remember deciding
Well,
not to go to church every Sunday.
not
It just happened.
that we just were going to go every other time. We talked about needed to go every other time. So that was a decision we made that we didn't have to go every time. Whereas before, when I talked to Dad, I said, "Do I have to go to church today? Do I have to go to sacrament meeting today?" And he'd say, "No, you don't have to go if you don't want to, but I expect you to. The Heavenly Father expects you to. You make your choice." So I'd go along with him to church. And I knew that even after we got married.
But it wasn't very long until you could see that you needed to go every Sunday.
We missed it. Then when we went to, when we got out of service, got out of medical school and went into the service, is this all right to talk? Went into the service, then we were back in North Carolina where there wasn't a regular church. And we didn't go to church until we finally got to the point where we missed it so badly.
There's really quite I had quite an experience, and I guess it wasn't an experience really, but we were with people who were not members of the church all the time. The only couple that we knew who were members of the church was an inactive couple, and so there was not any reason for us. I mean, there was no church for us to go to. We didn't know any, and we were used to having people smoke around us a lot. And I can remember one time, after we'd been almost a year of not going to church because there was no church available for us to go to that we could find, I can remember dreaming one night that I was smoking. And it was just lovely. I just could blow smoke and do all this stuff, and it was just wonderful. I thought in my dream, when I woke up, I was just terrified because I thought, imagine my ever getting to the point, even in a dream, where I could think that would be a nice thing to do. Because I really had never been tempted as a young girl to smoke, because I knew how bad it was for you, and I knew that the Lord didn't want me to smoke. I wouldn't have thought of smoking. But here, after being in it all this time, and before thinking that it was just not clean, I mean, the first time someone put a cigarette butt on one of my china plates when they came to my house to dinner, I thought, oh dear. But it wasn't long till it was nothing. You know, I didn't think anything of it at all. And then when I started dreaming that I was smoking, I thought, I'm not going to take any chances on this. So we did, before that, we had looked in the newspaper and in the telephone directory and asked everyone that we knew whether there was something like that, whether there was an LDS church, and no one knew of any. And there was nothing out to the base at all. There were places that you could go if you were this denomination or this one, you know, but nothing for Latter-day Saints. And so we finally wrote to Salt Lake, didn't we? And they wrote back and gave us an address where there was a Sunday school in our area.
Was there a name to it?
No, it was just an address. And so the next Sunday, Dean had to work, and I went down, and it was just we both went, didn't we? We both went down, and it was just a building over an old pool hall, and there was nothing there. There was nothing there. I don't know whether you went with me or just I went. and there wasn't anything there at all. And so, and I finally found the janitor for the building and asked him, and he said, oh yes, there used to be a Mormon church here. And I asked him if he could remember any names, the names of the bishop or anything like that. And he says, no, he says, I know the pastor's name was Stevens. I think the pastor's name was Stevens. And he told me the first name was Paul. He said, I think he was the pastor. And so I went home, and then it was too late that day, but I started calling. And I called Paul Stevens' name, and the woman who answered said, yes, that they were members of the church, and that they were meeting in a members' home now because the members were starting to get inactive, and so they decided to have it at their house. And so I thought, well, no, she didn't tell me that to start with. She just told me they were meeting in a member's house, and I thought, well, it must be quite a nice place. And so the next Sunday,
She gave you the address.
she gave me the address and said it was her not her husband, but her brother-in-law who was president of the Sunday school, the superintendent of the Sunday school, and that they didn't have a branch, that it was just a Sunday school. And so the next time I went out, and I went on the bus, and I told the bus driver where I wanted to go, where I wanted to get off, and asked him if he would let me know when I got to that place. And pretty soon he came to a place where the houses were real small and old, and as the bus went through, we went through so long. They were what they called mill houses, and that was people who worked in the mills. These were the houses the mills supplied for them, and they were just very, very basic little houses. And I kept thinking, oh, I'll be glad when they get through this and where we're going, you know. Well, they stopped right in the middle of here at this, and said, and he said, the bus driver said, this is your street, ma'am. And I said, mine? And so I stopped and went up, and I walked down a little road that wasn't even paved. It was just a little rocky road down to the end of it. And he said, yours will be near the end of the road down here. So I went down there, and as I walked down that kind of little muddy road and looking at those houses, I thought to myself, well, I'll never come here again. And I've been going with friends to their churches on Easter and Christmas and things like that, to the great big cathedral or big church, you know. And I walked down there, I thought, I'll never come here again. And when I got to the house, as I started up on the steps, the door opened, and that little gray-haired lady came out, and she said, oh, she said, I'll bet this is another Latter-day Saint. And I threw my arms around her and never missed a Sunday ever again. And I went out, and it was a really poor little Sunday school. It was basically the Stevens family. It was an older mother and father, and their two sons, two grown married sons, and a married daughter who was just barely married. And the Redwines, the people who owned the house. And they told me afterwards that the reason they'd been coming out there was because they were starting to get inactive, and they wanted to keep them coming, so they had it at their house. And but I didn't ever have the feeling of not wanting to go. If Dean had to work every other Sunday, he had to be at the base, and so I would go out by myself when he couldn't go. And I took the children. I didn't take the children this first time, this happy time that I was going, but I was never going back, you know. But the next time I took what, did we have Michael? Yes, we had Michael and Deanne and Alan.
No, we didn't
Yes.
we didn't have Alan then.
Yes. Yes.
Well, he came a little later after we had our.
Oh, he didn't. He was born. See, Alan was born in North Carolina, and that was before that.
I thought he was born later on after Martin came.
Oh, in North Carolina.
The base.
Oh, yes. I was thinking that was a different place, but he was born there. And and I don't remember.
We went. I put notices up at the base for any LDS, and we went. We decided we wanted to move in a better place, and so we went back to the same place, didn't we? Where they were meeting up above.
No,
It was a different.
no, we found it.
Well,
Oh, at the time. Oh, yes, they knew another hall for us to meet in. When we got the Dean had put up notices out at the base for the servicemen to meet on Thursday evenings, to have a Thursday evening meeting. And so the servicemen started to come. Finally, we had a lot of servicemen coming. And
we were just meeting at the base.
we were meeting at the base. No, yes,
When
and then we got a hall for them all to come on Sunday, to meet on Sundays with members, and we got a hall for them to meet in, but it was another pool hall.
Oddfellows Hall or something.
Oddfellows Hall, and we'd go in early and sweep out the cigarettes and move the beer cans and clean it up and have our Sunday school there. And we had sacrament meetings too.
We had everything then.
We had sacrament meetings too then.
Mom, what kind of callings did you have when you were young in the church like that? I mean, did you teach Sunday school? Did you?
I think first we were in the university ward in Salt Lake City, and I taught in MIA.
You taught mutual.
I taught mutual. Mm-hmm.
The picture dressing. And then, did you like teaching the youth?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did. When I was about 16, before I was married, I started to teach Sunday school. I was asked to teach Sunday school, and I taught the 10-year-olds the Book of Mormon. I was completely baffled. There are about 25 10-year-olds.
Oh my goodness.
And I knew nothing about how to teach the Book of Mormon. I didn't know the Book of Mormon well at all. And I used to just pray that the superintendency wouldn't come in and see how badly I was doing. And I used to go to union meeting then, and it wasn't a leadership meeting or anything like that. It was called union meeting.
Because it was called the Sunday School Union.
And so we would go, and you would go once a month. I think it was once a month, and we'd go to a specified spot and have someone to teach us how to teach our classes. And I never missed a one that I could help. So my teaching career started very early.
And so, as you were starting to raise up your family, what kind of problems did you run into as you were learning how to be a parent? I mean, what were some of the difficult things that you had to overcome?
Well, I think one of the things that it seemed to me that I was so busy that I didn't have time to do all the things that I wanted to do. And there's so many things that I didn't know that I know now. Like I would have had my little kids, all of them reading scriptures all the time. I would make sure we had a scripture reading time every morning. And I would see that my children were sometime during the day reading a little scripture on their own. Because I don't think there was anything that would have kept them closer to the church than closer to their Heavenly Father and wanting to do the right thing than a study of the scriptures, a close study of the scriptures. I think they would have matured earlier. Uh, all children, this is just a theory that I have now. That's one thing that I would like to have done. It didn't seem, now as I look back, it didn't seem to me that I had major challenges. I enjoyed my children so much. I loved having them around, and I would hear people say, oh, when they're little, they're so hard to take care of them, so hard to manage. And it didn't ever seem hard to me to take care of them. I thought they were fun. I liked to take care of when they're little, and I would hear people say, oh, teenagers are so terrible. Just wait till you get teenagers. The older my children got, the better I liked them, I thought. I thought when they were in high school, I thought they were wonderful. I mean, everybody had some kind of problems, you know, but they're not unsolvable, and I just thought teenagers were wonderful. I can remember having parties that the kids had and had the house full of children, young people, teenagers. I'm thinking, that was wonderful. But they were wonderful kids, and just fun to have them around.
We had Michaeline was born while we were in medical school in Salt Lake. And the next year we moved to Denver after the second year in Salt Lake. And then Deanne was born in Denver. And so we just had one girl for a while in school, and we had the second girl. And
We had Alan.
just before we
yes,
left New Hampshire.
we didn't have Alan when we lived in the first house, the greenhouse.
No. Michaeline had the mumps.
And where Michaeline and Deanne had the mumps. And because it was wartime, we had older men who were missionaries. And we had two lovely, well, we had more than two older missionaries who came and were missionaries, and they were older, and it was hard.
70 years old and so forth.
And I can remember saying to one couple, they were talking about they would go out in the country in North Carolina, and they would stay with the members or with people who were not members, and they said the flies are so bad, and the beds are so bad, the food is so terrible, because in North Carolina they cook so many of the vegetables with salt pork, so that they're really greasy, and they were just not used to food, and they were not used to this, and we tried to say to them, in fact we said one time to one couple, why don't you just come and stay with us? We didn't have an extra room, but we stacked the children up a little and let them have their beds. And I said, why don't you just come and stay with us? And you can eat here, and you can sleep here, and then just go out from here and do what you have to do. And what one of old Brother Garner said, Sister Packer, you don't need the blessings, and they need the blessings. That's why we have to stay with them. That's why we have to eat with them.
Isn't that neat?
Because they need the blessings. You don't need the blessings. And so then, after we left that house, when we went down, then the people came home who owned the house.
Yeah, the man had been discharged.
and we moved to another house, and Alan was born while we lived in the other house.
Last year we were there.
Mhm. And while he was there, is when were having a birthday party for Deanne. And Alan
He was asleep in his room.
was in a little bassinet in the bedroom, and I heard him start to cry, and I thought that was strange. Why did non-children didn't cry very much? And pretty soon I heard him scream, and I went running in there, and one of the neighbors' little kids
40 years old.
had hold of Alan's head, pulling him up out of the basket, and was biting him on the top of his head, and he had bitten the top of his head until he made it bleed. And when we grabbed him and rescued the baby, but he'd bitten his hand also. And he already bitten one of his fingers off. I mean, the finger was not bitten it off, but he
Skin hadn't been broken, but it was just
But-
squeezed right down.
and it was bleeding, and his head was bleeding. And
How old was that?
and it was just a
baby.
4-year-old, something like that.
Alan was a baby, and
Alan
this
was-
boy was a 4-year-old.
Alan was in a bassinet,
Just 2 or 3
He
months
was-
old.
and Alan would have been born.
Was there? This was a neighbor kid that had come in the house.
Well, he
Well, he
was.
was at the party.
He was at the
Oh.
party. He was at the party for Deanne.
See, Deanne was only
And
4 years old.
Deanne's, well, she would have been the 17th of March, and Alan was just born in February, on the 14th of February. So he was only a month old.
Did you ever find out why this boy had
No.
bitten
He didn't.
Alan?
Well, his grandma, he was there with his grandmother and his little sister who was Deanne's age. And we'd invited them because of and she said, oh, that's the 3rd time he's bitten someone. I don't know why he does that. But anyway, they took him home.
And we just cleaned him up and he healed up fine.
Of course.
He
Yeah.
healed up just really fine, but he was
When he
screaming.
was so young, he
His
didn't
little
ever
kid
remember it.
Oh my.
dying, you know.
Poor kid.
Can you imagine?
And anyway, that was one of the exciting things that happened there. Another exciting thing that happened there was we had a
Does Ellen know about that?
we had a furnace, a coal furnace, and it's one of these that burns slag, little pieces of coal, and they come and fill up our basement through the window. There's a big coal room that they fill up. And one day, I got Michaeline and Deanne ready to go to church, and then I was getting Alan, the baby, ready. And by the time I got him ready and whatever I was doing for dinner, to start dinner, and I called the girls to come in. They came in, both Michaeline and Deanne, and they were black from their faces and their hands and they came in just beaming, Mother, we've been swimming. I said, you've been what? We've been swimming in the coal. We'd go down the chute and slide down into that big pile of coal. And they were just
Coal powder is what it was.
Yeah.
They just were delighted because they'd been swimming these little tiny pieces of coal this big, and they were just black from head to toe. So then
In their Sunday clothes.
in their Sunday clothes, and so then from
So
that,
you might have missed that day.
yes,
Or been late.
yeah. So then from that, I learned a lesson. I learned you get the baby first and do everything first. Then the little toddlers, you dress the last thing, and then you pop them into the car quick before they have time to get in any more trouble.
Something else about Deanne, she was a little older, I guess, wasn't she, but we were in North Carolina, weren't we, when she had her burned her bottom?
Oh yes,
She had the furnace we had.
She was in the Baker Street house, or Mrs. Baker's home.
And the furnace was a central furnace, came up into the hall and upstairs, and it had, the top was
A grill.
a grill. And of course we'd walked on it and everybody walked on it, it was smooth and slick.
But it got hot when
It
it
got
was
hot as a
when it was
firecracker.
when it was really going, you know.
And when we'd walk on it, we'd have our shoes on, of course, and no one ever paying attention to it. Well, Deanne came out from bathing one day, and she she was undressed and didn't have her diaper on or anything. And she came across there and slipped and sat right down on the top of that grill and started to scream, of course. And I ran and grabbed her and picked her up, tipped her up, and she had blisters, cross marks on, hatches all across her bottom,
Like a waffle iron.
like a waffle iron. And we put
Poor little
poor
girl.
little girl, she
Barbecue.
blistered up and
Barbecued her bottom.
Barbecued her bottom. But it got well. I don't think she even has any scars anymore. Haven't noticed.
we haven't asked her to show us her bottom to see. For the last year or
Lately.
Just ask Paul.
Played tic-tac-toe on her bottom.
Yeah. But we've had a lot of
Oh.
fun kidding her about that.
That way she likes waffles.
That's too bad when things like that happen.
Yeah.
Well,